Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a chess tournament. We are finally back playing another tournament, this time in another country, and I'm very, very excited because, first of all, I get to play more chess and make more recaps, and second of all, there are no children. I'm not gonna get beaten by a child. So, this is very, very exciting, and let's get straight into round number one, shall we? So, let's go here, and away we go. So, I started round one with the black pieces, and here's how it went. My opponent opened with 1 to e4, which is the most popular opening ever, and it's also my favorite way of receiving a game of chess because, honestly, d4 is just not that exciting to me. So I started with they started with e4, and you guys, if you guys watch my previous chess videos, you guys would know that I tend to respond with c6, the Caro-Kann defense. Now, the Caro-Kann defense is my bread and butter, thanks to Gotham Chess, but it is very exciting. A lot of traps, a lot of ways to win from the opening, and all that jazz. So my opponent went knight c3, which already is kind of meaning he doesn't know what he's doing because knight c3 is just not a very good move in the Caro-Kann defense. So I went d5, and here my opponent refused to take my pieces and went f3. Now, this is almost a fantasy variation if my opponent managed to get this pawn here as well, which honestly, I did not review my lines for the fantasy variation, so I would get into probably some trouble if my opponent knows what they're doing. So thankfully, it's not the fantasy. He played that. I so as you guys can see here, the computer says the best line is d4, which I do agree now that I think about it. But the thing is, during the game, I did not quite think so. I just felt like d4 is, overcommitting, and even though I know I need to get this bishop out somewhere, there's no good squares to put it on because these pawns are preventing my bishop from staying there. So I figured, okay, let's just shut my bishop in. e6, having a nice pyramid structure. It's almost like a stone wall if I play this. So realistically, it's very solid, and I'm not going to lose. That's what I'm thinking, and we proceed. So my opponent now plays d4, which the game now transposes into a fantasy variation. As you guys can see, I don't know if you guys can. Yeah, it does say fantasy variation. But at this point, my brain, even though it is the fantasy version, my brain doesn't think so anymore, and I just start going queen b6, which is the third engine move. I mean, the third engine move is fine in the opening, and then the game just starts going, knight g to e2, which to me is kind of weird. Like, I feel like my opponent could have moved the bishop. He could have moved this here. Like, oh, I know the computer's suggesting some very weird lines, but I feel like it's more principle to get some of these guys out. And the knight being here is fine too, but you block your bishop in, so I don't like that much. So he went knight g to e2, and then I went knight a6. Now this is an interesting move because it's definitely not a top engine move at all, and in fact, it gives white a slight advantage after I play this. But my plan is to either move this over here when I break open the c file, or I move my knight back here and I support the center, or even options to go over here later in the future. So I think this is a good move because going here just doesn't make a whole lot of sense because this knight is going here anyway, so this knight can't go anywhere, and going here just gives me more mobility. He then played bishop to d2, which immediately is a mistake because I feel like I played this in like 2 seconds. I'm just like, I put my queen on b6 for a reason. The reason I put it there is obviously whatever changes on the b file, I am going to take that damn pawn, and change it did. He moved the bishop, I took the pawn. Now he chased my queen away, I move it back, all very simple. The queen has an escape route, he is never trapping my queen, and the nice thing about the Caro-Kann c6 is that the knight can't really go here to attack my queen. You can't tickle me, bro. That's just not happening. And then he went knight here for some reason. I don't know what this move is for. I still don't understand. Like, this is not really an outpost because I'm just gonna snap it and he has like bad pawn structure. And if he wants to defend this pawn already, this knight is doing the job. Like, what are you on? So, I there are a lot of ways that I can play here. Obviously developing, moving some stuff, but I just moved my queen to j6 because honestly, it's good to be safe, and I started with a safe opening with a pyramid pawn structure, so I might as well continue being safe. Just grab a pawn, get out of there. I'm just up a clean pawn. Even though the engine thinks that he is better to the point of nearly being up a pawn. That is really strange because he has a lot of activity, but like, where is he gonna go? I'm just gonna stop him. And here, the moment I moved here, I realized that he could take this. I realized this during the game that he could do this, but my opponent didn't do that. He went knight to d3. Now, around this point of the game is where it might not fully be remembered as it was in the game. But the moments, the critical moments will be there, and I hope that you guys don't mind because sometimes the pieces we're going to move back and forth. It's like reshuffling, making the game look making the pieces stay in the correct position of the critical signs. So enough talking. I'm just gonna continue. I went knight c7. This is the plan all along because after I realized that he failed to take my knight, I was just like, okay, you're not taking my knight anymore. I'm just gonna go, and he went queen here. Now this move is very peculiar because I don't know what this queen is doing here. The queen is very much fine there. And now you just block your bishop. Like, what is this piece even doing? It's a pawn at this point. I mean, it's not much better. I mean, my bishop is not much better than his bishop, but at least mine is like not blocked for some reason. It's like it's blocked because it was intended to be blocked, not because it's blocked because the opponent decided that I'm gonna play pieces right in front of it so that I can never move my bishop again. So as you can see now, after a couple of mistakes, the advantage swung back to my side. Now I'm actually up a full pawn, and the game is proceeding. I play 97 because I don't want to go here. Because if in case I go here, my opponent can go e5 and fork my queen and my knight, and I would just lose the game on the spot. It is a very, very common mistake, and I'm sure people in my tournament made it, but I didn't see anyone actually do it live. So you gotta take it with a grain of salt. So I played 97. My opponent played queen up to e3. He wants to like bring it somewhere over here, but there's nothing. There's nothing here. Like, you want to trade my queen? You can trade my queen. It's not a big problem, Like, it's a pretty congested position. I don't think I would mind trading queens. But like, this queen is just like, you go here, I kick you out, and what? Or like, you go here, like, what are you attacking? Everything's protected. I might even go g6, bishop g7, and then what? Which is exactly what I did. G6 it is, because my bishop is conveniently blocked by two pieces. So the only other way out is going this way, which is another very fascinating idea of the Karo Khan. So that I did. And then he proceeded to move his bishop finally to prepare for castling. I also proceed to move my bishop to g7, and he went e5. Now, e5 is the second top engine move, but I feel like e5 is just a bad move because after this, I have a lot of ideas about breaking open with c5 or f6. Like, I have a lot of pawn breaks here, and I feel like my opponent just does not have the artillery to defend this position. But enough of that. I just moved my queen back. Of course, I don't want to hang my queen in one move. That I honestly would have quit the tournament on the spot if I did that. So he castles. I move my knight to f5. Now, this is kind of a critical moment because obviously I know I can castle, but this move does not have any downsides. Like, I get a tempo, I bring my knight to a better position, and my opponent just has to move before he can make an improving move. So I've improved my position without actually causing any further problems for myself. So I think it was good. My opponent went here. Yeah, here, which is a big blunder, and this is the critical moment of the game. Can you guys find the critical move here? But don't look at the engine, but you guys can if you want. So after thinking for a long time, I I mean I know this is a mistake from a distance, but I was just considering like bishop here, which was what I played, skewering the queen and the bishop. Now normally this is not a big problem, but the bishop is protected by the knight, and once the queen moves out of the way, the queen stops protecting the bishop. I get a free bishop in the middle game, which is just huge. Yeah, I mean, queens and bishops usually defend each other really well because the queen can go like defend it in sideways and stuff like this, but it's just not an option here. So he loses a bishop this way. I was afraid of like ghosts, if you will. Like I was afraid of knight to f to c5, which I also calculated during the game that if he plays this, I take his queen, he takes my queen, I take his bishop, and then this knight can go give me a check, but he isn't actually taking anything extra. Whereas I'm still attacking a knight, and I'm about to take it. If he saves this knight, I take this other knight, and I'm just up like two pieces instead of one piece. So it's not a good line. So my opponent also probably calculated that and he moved his queen out of the way. But apparently this movement is not very good. The engine is suggesting taking on h6 or taking on f5, which I mean like no humans would do that, so obviously going here is the correct move. I took his bishop, and then he saw that his knight was being attacked, so he defended the knight, but he did not realize that I have another critical moment coming right up right here, which will be covered in this video. So my opponent, unfortunately, after obviously before, there was a bishop here, right? This bishop guards this entire diagonal, so my knight couldn't have gone here, but after I took this and he went here, I just decided to, okay, I'm just gonna simplify. I'm gonna take this knight, he takes this, and then I go here, which strangely enough, the engine doesn't even think it's a good move. It thinks knight b5, h5, and queen e7 as the top three engine moves, which is I don't understand. Like, how is a fork not as good? But apparently it's for the fourth best move, so it's fine. And here, opponent obviously has to save his queen, so he moves his queen. I took his rook. He took my knight, and now, as you guys can see at the bottom of the screen right here, I am up 6 points of material, and the game is pretty much over. Like, the rest of it is kind of like me trying to remember the game to the best of my ability, but, you know, mistakes could happen. So I attack his rook. He counterattacks my queen. I move my queen out of the way. And here is another, I guess, kind of an important moment. So if I have moved my queen to c7, it is actually worse. Because after bishop takes knight, if I take this, the game is almost in the equal. Apparently queen f6 is better, but isn't this just winning? No, this doesn't win because the rook is not defended. But the point is, like, this is just another big can of worms, which I cannot afford to do right now. So I calculated queen to c7, queen to e7, and I realized this is a mistake, and I moved to the other way. Now my opponent really wants to like win back some material, which I totally respect. But unfortunately I kick out his knight. He has to leave, block out his bishop to my knight, and then I castle on like the 23rd move. Could be later, could be earlier. I don't know the exact order of the games. And then he goes here with a futile effort of trying to checkmate me on h7, which is never going to work because I just take a free pawn attacking his rook. He moves his rook attacking this, but my knight is still protecting. I defend this anyway so that I can move my knight to attack his queen. He moves his knight over here because he wants to do something like this and checkmate me. Which, if he manages to put his knight here, the game is just completely over because I guess I can play f6 and defend this way, but the point is if he has a knight here and a queen here, it's like really dangerous, and you just don't want to be in that position. So I played f6 now, so that I have eyes on this pawn, and he goes here. Now here, I believe I made a mistake by going queen to g7, Oh, or later. Okay. Well, I went queens g7 because I was like, oh, I just want to trade queens with him because I know that after trading queens, I'm just not going to get checkmated, and not getting checkmated is always a good thing. So he moves his queen out of the way. I attack his queen again. He moves it again, and then I took a pawn. And the game it ends here, but you guys can see that there's still a lot of converting to do. But I have a lot of extra materials, so I just try to trade them off, and it's like up a rook in the end game. So it was fine. It was fine. It was a good first game, and basically, ladies and gentlemen, that is how my tournament kicked off with a great win with black pieces. So it was not really a Karukan masterclass by any stretch of the imagination because I definitely misplayed the opening, but I had some good opening ideas. I just had a plan when my opponent didn't. So that was what helped me clinch the first point, and I will see you in game number 2. See ya.